What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great edition of No Love Philly, the podcast dedicated to artists, activists, musicians, comedians, performers, breweries, basically anybody that makes the city of brotherly love and the surrounding area as awesome as it is. This podcast was recorded at day one of Good How Are You Fest, and it is the second part in a series of podcasts about the underground house venues in the city. We got a lot of footage, some really good, some really bad. All of it will be used to put together a mini doc to kind of accompany this series. For this particular podcast, we caught up with Jacinda and Kelsey and discussed their original music, playing covers to survive, and how getting swindled by bars led to the creation of the underground house scene in Philly. These girls are a part of Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs. Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs, and we heard a lot of amazing stuff about their drummer as well, who was not able to be there for the interview. It's an awesome interview. We learn a lot about the band as a whole, a lot about the scene in general. And that's it. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, listen to us and subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. And here is our interview with Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs. All right, there we go. So,
are we good?
Let me see here. Yeah, we are good, man.
All
so
right.
why don't we start off with names? The name of your guys' names, the band you guys are in.
All right. Well, we're in Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs. I am Jacinda.
I'm Kelsey.
Of Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs. My name is not Swig, unfortunately. That would make it so much easier.
Is that your drummer's name?
We wish. His name is Brandon King. He's involved in Dear Friend and Andalusia as well. Definitely check them out. They're unbelievably talented.
That is awesome. So we are at Tralfamadore, which is kind of like an underground house venue where they're doing shows. And so I just recently came to know about some of the underground venue scene. Do you guys usually play this circuit, or are you playing other house shows? Or
We've been playing Tralfamadore for a while. I moved to Philly about 2 years ago, and Maddie, who runs Tralfamadore, has been booking me here since I moved here. We met because I subletted his apartment in Center City when I first moved to Philly, because I didn't know where to live, and I subletted his apartment, and then we became friends, and he was just like, "Hey, do you want to play this show?" And then I started to build a band, and he's been booking me for almost 2 years.
Yeah, and that kind of jump-started the whole Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs thing, because at first it was just Kelsey doing her acoustic stuff and, pretty much going wherever she possibly could, making some contacts and stuff, but Maddie really facilitated the whole band coming together. I think Kelsey and I played in New York City about the very, very end of 2015, and that's where we met Brandon, and he just blew our minds. He's so talented. So once we knew that he existed and lived in Philly, we were like, all right, well, he's ours now. And that's how Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs was born, and we just kind of play wherever we can possibly get.
It's funny, my buddy downstairs, he's helping me out today, and he said when he met him, he was like, "Man, Shane, I just looking at that dude and talking to him and getting his vibe, I feel like that guy's somebody that's going to be very talented. You should really interview them." And I was like,
God.
"All right." So it's weird that you say that, and then my buddy picked up on that vibe so well when you're
just
saying,
his
how amazing
energy
he is.
when he plays. It's he plays the drum set charismatically. If that. I guess that's a thing because I feel it when I watch him. We watch Dear Friend. We've seen their shows a few times, and it's just watching him play on stage, knowing that he plays with us kind of is insane because he just brings this energy to a set where the set has its own value, but then whatever he brings to it just increases it, multiplies it exponentially forever. That's just Brandon's impact.
Yeah, when we met him through a show with the legendary Philly Chuck Treese of McRad, and when we saw Brandon, I was just like, oh shit, this dude needs to play drums with us, and we just all vibe together really well, and yeah, we've been together ever since.
Yeah, he's a pretty active dude as well, right? He's in several. I know that he was playing today. And then he had to go to another show at the Foundry? Is that right?
He was playing at the Foundry. He just I didn't even know that he was playing a show. He just I was just like, hey, Brandon. Like, I just texted him and said, like, hey, Brandon, where are you playing tonight? And he was like, oh, I'm at the Foundry. And I was like, who are you playing with? And he just told me he's playing with Among Criminals. And he got that show also from our mutual friend and mentor, Chuck Treese. So
That's
That's
awesome. There
cool.
seems to be a lot of that. The first thing, there seems to be a lot of people taking other people under their wing, kind of to show
Absolutely.
them the scene and like do that. So there's a lot of like godfathers. I don't or godmothers. if you would
Yes,
say.
like both.
Right.
I would say, like, definitely the day that I moved to Philly and Jacinda and I both met at Westchester. We went to school at Westchester University. And the day that I moved to Philly, I had a show in Westchester with Chuck Treese, and he was playing with a reggae band, Anwa. And I met him, and, like, I had heard about him and, like, knew he was, like, amazing and everything. But Chuck Treese and I became friends, and then, like, he asked me to do all these shows with him, and he just, like, kind of took me under his wing, and he's like, hey, here's Philly, and, like, showed us what's up. And it was crazy that that's, like, the same time that I also met Maddie. So, like, I feel like the whole career of, like, my career and, like, the career of the band started with, like, Chuck Treese and Maddie just kind of, like, helping us out.
Yeah, and I mean, Chuck has just facilitated so much for us along the way. Through Kelsey mostly, I think they definitely have the strongest bond. Chuck just kind of, like, nods his head at me when he sees me. Oh, and Brandon. Brandon still plays with Chuck sometimes with McRad. But, like, past that even, I think the entire Philly DIY scene is just full of camaraderie. Like, a very intense bond of, like, we're in this, like, weird-ass city, and we're just kind of, like, all paving our way together. It's just this collective of talent just brimming over because we all want to support each other so much, and so we're all mentoring each other along the way. We have an opening and a show. We're going to bring our friends along. We've taken bands to Westchester. We've taken some bands from Philly to Schuylkill County. Like, if we can, we're going to bring them along because we know that they've got the talent, and we just want to facilitate their success as much as they want to facilitate ours.
So Chuck sounds awesome. I definitely want to get that introduction. I really want to interview him. He sounds like definitely one of those dudes who kind of opens doors for people, and I think that's awesome. I think that's something that more people should know about. So where did both of you come from before Philly?
Jacinda, came from Lancaster County. My family is from Western PA, and my parents moved to Lancaster way before I was born. Grew up there. It's insanely boring. I have no fun stories to tell you. That's where I learned a lot of the music, but that was just kind of coincidence. I just, like, my family's been insanely involved in music since forever. But then I went to Westchester, and that's kind of where everything started for me personally. But Kelsey...
Yeah, I grew up in the Pennsylvania coal region, in Schuylkill County, and it's very much like the middle of nowhere. And I grew up next to the abandoned town Centralia. If anybody's ever heard of that, like,
Isn't that like a ghost town?
yeah,
Like,
it's a ghost town. It's like. Yeah, it was the inspiration for the movie / like video game Silent Hill.
Okay, all
That's
right.
where I grew up.
Is it creepy?
I mean, like, it's not weird.
Jacinda says no.
No, I mean, it depends. Like, if it depends how you look at it. Like, for me, it's just like very regular because I drove past it. Like where I live, you have to drive to get to everywhere you go. So it was like I was driving through Centralia like at least 3 times a day to go anywhere. So it wasn't that weird for me. And then it wasn't until, like, I was older and I moved out of the area that I was like, oh, that's weird that, like, I grew up next to this, like, abandoned town. But yeah, I used to play with a band there called Roxy Nova, and then I went to college in Westchester where, like, Roxy Nova kind of continued, and, like, Jacinda and I met in the marching band. We both played saxophone, and then eventually we were just like, hey, we need a bass player. So we kind of just, like, taught Jacinda how to play bass.
That's
and,
awesome.
Like, Jacinda and I are, like, best friends in, like, the world. So it only makes sense that, like, Jacinda is my bass player now. So we do everything together.
So I was gonna, when moving to like Philly, it's a bit of culture shock. I mean, depending
Absolutely.
but you seem to have I mean, you're saying absolutely, but you seem to have a totally different vibe that what you did is you said, oh, no, I came here for college, and as soon as I got here, I had a show. Were you already scouting stuff out when you before you came out here?
I feel like it was different. Like, I went from Schuylkill County to Westchester. It's like one step, like one level. I feel like where it's like totally different, but not as different as like. Then I went from Schuylkill County to Westchester, from Westchester to Philly, because like we used to go to house shows at this venue in Westchester called the New Button, and they had a lot of Philly bands playing in Westchester. So it was kind of like a cool transition. And then like while I was still living in Westchester, our band played in Philly like once, I think, but also like it was a nice transitional phase.
So
like,
you were already meeting people from the Philly scene by being okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey met Chuck in Westchester at a venue we had played at. It was Roxy Nova. We played there before. Social Lounge, I think it was. And so when Kelsey was invited just to, like, open real quick casual for this band, and then it ended up being, like, the legendary Chuck Treese. And so coincidentally, she had just moved to Philly. It wasn't like we were seeking out people that had roots in Philly at all. But, I mean, Chuck is from West Philly. Like, that's where he grew up. And Kelsey meeting him that day kind of just set everything in motion, just like accidentally. But when we were in Westchester, it was just like, hey, we love playing music. Let's do some band stuff. And like we found our way around different bars, and we were in the college scene for sure. It was definitely a poppin' city, especially coming like Lancaster County. It's all farms, and
so Westchester is popping off.
It's all college students. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near Philly. It definitely doesn't have the talent that Philly does. Doesn't have the know-how that Philly does. No, it's just, it's all college students. It's people getting their way there.
There's still a scene there.
Absolutely,
and that's awesome.
yeah.
There's like a scene, but I don't think it's as permanent. It's like college kids are there, but they're in and out. And I feel like most of them who are in bands are like coming from Westchester to go to school there like we did, and then moving to Philly or like elsewhere. But it has a scene, and like when we were there, and like I said, the house venue that we went to all the time, the New Button, was like kicking, and like it was so cool. And that was the first place that I ever went to a house show before, and it like changed my life. Like the first house show that I went to had like the band Vita and the Wolf, who are like very big now. I feel like I've seen them I feel like I saw them on the Firefly list this year, and I was like, I saw them at like in a tiny basement, and I'm like, that's so cool. Like it's cool to see people like evolving.
Yeah, so what do you think spawned this basement scene? Like, what do you think prompted this to happen?
People fucking people over for money.
Yeah, I really think that a lot of bars really will swindle you into a free performance, saying like, oh, we need to make this much money before we can pay you. And they'll make definitely over that much money. Just if you count the number of people in the audience and count the cover charge, like, you know that you should be getting paid money, and you're not. So it really is like, things happen when you need it, There was a desire for bands to kind of just be friends with other bands, and they needed a place to facilitate all of this happening. And you've got people like Maddie who realize that need, have a space to fulfill that need, and are like, well, then fuck it. Like, I'll do it. I have the space. I have the time. I have all of the equipment that's necessary. And so Tralfamador is born, and, Slam Time Live and any other house venue that you may have in Philly, just because you need it. You need a space where you can just be friendly and nice and perform for people that are going to appreciate it, and then also get paid. Who cares if a band gets paid $12 total? Because you're just
It's better than them not paying you at all. Because these venues, they'll charge like a high cover charge for all of your you're getting all your friends to come out, and the venue will charge you such a cover charge, and like they will make you, the people in your band, pay for drinks all night. They'll make you, like, they'll have your friends paying for drinks all night, and then they'll fuck you over and just be like, hey, we're not paying any of the bands. Like, we're not paying anybody tonight. And I'm like, you wouldn't have a single person in your bar if it wasn't for everybody coming out to see my band. So, like, you're just running a shitty bar, so fuck you. We're going to put on shows ourselves where, like, everybody can benefit, even if it's like, say, even if my band is only going to get paid $20, it's better than somebody like charging a high cover charge and not paying any of the bands at all.
Oh yeah, it's really just a show of faith. It's just proving that this can be fun, this can be profitable, even if it's a little bit. It's encouraging to get paid just a little bit, rather than be scorned forever and realize, like, that's just so defeating.
Yeah, you're like, I've got enough money for a couple of quarts and a cheesesteak, and that makes the night awesome, right?
Yeah, right? Like, it does, though. Like, it just really energizes me just to get, handed a $10 bill at the end of the night. I'm just like, fuck yeah. Like, I had a really great time with people that I know care about me and care about my band's success, and I care about theirs and their success. And it's just the camaraderie that is around the Philly DIY scene that just it encourages it to continue forever.
Right. So have you guys had any positive experiences with venues? Like, is there like some places that you prefer to play over others?
Our band definitely needs to go to more venues. I think we have our regular spots where, like, we're gonna have a good time, we're gonna enjoy ourselves. We might not make that much money, if at all, but the bartenders will still treat us right, and we'll still get guests and free drinks and stuff like that, which is something more than nothing. But I don't know, Kelsey?
I found it interesting that so far I feel like I used to, like, book some shows with my old band, but now, like, with Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs, the only shows that I've booked myself, I booked one show in my own house, which was, like, just a party, so, like, it wasn't a money-making thing. And then I booked one show in Westchester, and I booked one show back home in Schuylkill County in Pottsville at a bar called Trippin' Billy's. And the bands made more money outside of Philly than they did in Philly, which is weird because you would think, like, oh, you're in a city, like, you should be making more money. But in reality, it's like, all right, when we did the show in Westchester, each band got paid like $100, and then when we were in Pottsville, which is like really like the middle of nowhere, like Pottsville is where Yingling beer is brewed, like that's the claim to fame in Schuylkill County,
and that's all that's there. I mean,
yeah,
in Pottsville's pretty. I drove through it. It's like a Mexican restaurant and a laundromat.
Exactly. But I feel like the venue owners are just like really happy to have people out in their bars, and they're excited to have these bands there, and they're excited to pay you. So at that venue, like, each band made at least $120, which still isn't like that much, but it's way more than you make in Philly, which is crazy because it's like
all the money's here.
Yeah, you would assume you would make more money in Philly.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's that towns like Westchester and Pottsville, they're the only towns around that have anything going on. So the bars that are in there have a lot more of a budget when it comes to booking shows, which in Philly, I love Philly. It's a hub of creativity, and creativity encourages creativity. But unfortunately, the fact that there are, one, so many bars, clubs, venues, and two, so many bands that just are spawning out of nowhere. I mean, which is awesome, personally. Yeah, they're all insanely talented. It's, like, upsetting almost that, like, all of this is happening and no one's seeing it. But those two facts combined, like, bars can easily get away with paying people nothing because you've got bands that are just want to play. So when you go to Westchester and when you go to Pottsville, they've got the budget to pay you a lot. You just have to know the right people. When it comes to Philly, however, it's easy for bars to get away with it, and it's hard to... Yeah, Kelsey says they just want to fuck you over, and it's true. They just know they can get away with it because there's nowhere else you can go.
So is there no way that you can control the door? Do you see what I'm saying? So that so you say, all right, man, I'm going to pay you $100 for the venue, but I'm putting my dude in the front to collect cash. So that at the end of the night, we know how many paid people we have, and we'll pay you out of that 100. Or I'll give you $100 right now. You let me rent out the venue. We still have our dude at the door collecting all the cash, so we can recoup that money. You don't ever have the option of having your own door person there.
I never tried to do that because I mean, so far, me personally, I'm sure you could talk to Maddie or anybody else who has more experience putting on shows, but for me, I'm like, why don't I just have the show in my house where I don't have to pay anybody out? I don't yeah, the same amount of people are going to come out to the show. I would rather just have it in my house where I control everything pretty much. And it's if you want to put together your own little bar and everything, it's you can charge cheaper drink prices and everything. And you don't have to charge as high of a cover. So more people want to come out, and it's more simple. It sucks to kind of have to put it on in your house because you're worried about people destroying your house, but at the same time, I'd rather have it in my house than have it at another bar because it's I don't have to pay anybody else.
Yeah, I think the house venues are a big no, fuck you statement. Because
absolutely.
no, bitch, we'll buy the 30-pack of PBR and we'll sell them here or whatever it is, and no, we're gonna have a rad fucking time, and you're kind of cutting out that middleman. So I mean, I see it. But where are you all? Where are your regular? You were talking about you guys have some regular places that you all play. What are those regular spots? Where?
Off the top of my head, we've played Kung Fu Necktie a bunch of times.
Okay, right under the L.
Shoot, I mean, Trail Famador is just a classic. Oh, yeah. We play here as much as we possibly can because it's just we know we're gonna get paid even if it's a show of faith payment where it's $10 for the whole band. Who the fuck cares? You're trying, it's cool.
I mean, we've played Connie's Rick Rack, The Fire, the Barbary we played for the first time last night. I played at Fringe Arts once. Oh yeah, I've been playing this great bar in Center City that I want to plug called Liberty Bar, which is on 22nd and Market. I've been doing acoustic shows there, but they actually know how to treat artists right, and I mean, it's just been solo acoustic gigs, but he pays me super fairly, and it's just a very fun time, and that's one of the only places that actually pays you fairly. So, and it's just a great place.
The unfortunate part is that venues really can get away with not paying you much because they'll just have one guy that's already going to be working, pay $9 an hour or whatever, sitting at the door and also bartending and just taking tickets and taking money, whatever, and they don't have they would rather do that than have us control it at all because it's way easier for them to make a profit if we're not really involved in running it at all. You can have someone book it, but booking it is not the same thing as running the door, unfortunately.
See, but I don't know. I guess I kind of feel like that's bullshit because it's kind of no. Hey, how you doing? That I feel like it's kind of excuse me, sorry, no worries. I kind of feel like it's no, you guys are the ones that are running the show. I mean, you guys are the ones producing the content, number one, putting out all the flyers, having to do all the social media, and so what? They post one Facebook post and create an event for the day, and they're the ones that get all the credit for it?
Yeah, that's what's truly so frustrating, and the fact is that most of the venues are kind of operating under the same principle, but also that desire for fair treatment is what borns Tralfamador.
Right.
Where, if no one's gonna treat us well, we'll treat ourselves well at this point, because who else is gonna?
So have you guys done some other underground or have you guys done some other house shows? Are there other house shows that you all have been in or in other parts of town?
There are other parts.
I keep hearing about them. Dude, when I first heard about this, I was like, I have to explore it. And then that's when I found the Trash Boy, and we talked to them at Slime Time. Yeah, and then they're the ones that told me about this and said, you should totally come. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. And it's the more that, I feel like I'm opening Pandora's box, but one side at a time, and I keep finding out about all these new super awesome things that exist in the city. Did you know that there was a sideshow scene here? There's like, yeah, people that swallow swords and spit fire. That exists here. Suicide girls live here.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't know that though. You're like, well, yeah, like it is.
There's tons and tons and tons of like crazy stuff that just like goes on that isn't always advertised as much, but there's so many artists in this city, and I feel like people are just flocking to Philly like right now, like especially opposed to like New York or other cities, because Philly's a million times cheaper to live in than other cities.
Literally
like,
a million.
Logically, like it's so much cheaper, and like there's just so many artists here right now, and it's beautiful. Like I meet so many artists like every single time I play a show, or every single time I go to a show or go somewhere. I just meet so many cool-ass people, and I'm just like, Philly is exploding right now. Like, honestly, like, I feel like this is the place to be. Like, before, like, when I was graduating college, like, I wanted to be a teacher, and I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I don't want to actually be a teacher. And I was like, I don't want to move home. And everybody's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to move to Philly. And they're like, why? And I was like, because Philly is amazing. Like, there's so much cool shit going on in the city right now, and there's so many great artists and like just so much inspiring like things going on at the moment.
So wait a minute, is being a musician, is that how you guys are sustaining yourselves right now, or do you guys have day jobs or?
LOL. I currently work in a pizza shop, and I've been making substantial money playing acoustic shows, because you make the most amount of money to play shitty cover songs, but people love it. I mean, like, I've been having like very regular gigs, like I said, at like Liberty Bar and stuff.
Is that soul crushing at all, playing covers? Is
yes. Yes, it is, but like say I'll make about $50 an hour to play cover songs, and like that's a million times more fun than working in a pizza shop for $8 an hour. Like it's very fun compared to working in a pizza shop, but that's like, if you want to be a musician and like play random ass gigs all the time, you need to have a job that's like super flexible, and it's hard to maintain. And like I'm literally living in poverty right now. Like it's hard to admit that like I'm living in poverty for the first time in my life, but also like I'm living the happiest life that I've ever lived in my life. That sounds very redundant and
more
stupid,
money, more
but it's weird. But yeah, it's very, very hard to live a sustainable life just playing music, especially if you just want to play with your band. Like you don't get paid jack shit.
You agree with that? Is that?
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. I got very lucky out of college. I was not a music major. It was really just a hobby in college, but like, a very like emotionally fulfilling hobby, where that's where I got most of my joy out of life. And it's kind of the same now. Like I work at a nonprofit in Center City, we're helping people with disabilities receive services from the state that they might need. But it's a soul crushing job. It's got a very, very high risk of burnout. And really, like, if I don't play a show for more than a month, like, I feel, like, dead inside. 'Cause, like, I mean, I'm basically, like, a social worker, essentially, and I've got a caseload of about 60 people, and I've had, like, 5 people die already, just 'cause that's how that works.
And I bet it's, like, one of those things where you're like, oh, how was your day at work? I don't want to talk about
Yeah,
work.
absolutely.
Right.
It's absolutely draining. It's, oh, my God. I, like, can't even really describe it more than that, because it's just emotionally, physically, mentally draining. I have to do home visits all the time. Things are disgusting everywhere, 'cause like then you're aware of like
what's going on outside of music. And
exactly.
You're like, oh wait, this is real life.
People's lives
and it
suck.
Sucks. Yeah,
it's
I hear
horrible.
you.
So then I get to do shows with Kelsey, and it's amazing. I can't believe that she's allowed me to like do this next to her, with her, like grow with her, etc. Which is just such a privilege for me. But also, it's like the best outlet for having a shitty life is being able to play music. And like,
was it difficult for you to pick up the bass and to learn it? Was it like
no.
it wasn't?
No. One, the bass is a very hard instrument to suck at.
But you're gonna say play, and then you're
No.
like, I'm just naturally good.
Oh no, I mean, I don't know. Personally, it was like very easy. But I also grew up playing music. Like I've been playing string instruments since I was 7 or 8. I've been playing the saxophone since I was 9 or 10. And I really played it up until the end of college, both of them. Like I played people's junior recitals and shit like that. It was
So it wasn't foreign to you at all. I mean, it wasn't like it
What?
wasn't out of playing bass, playing music wasn't like out of this like
no. I
this
mean,
realm of like possibility. It was
No.
something completely in your spectrum.
no, it was. I mean, it just like felt very, very natural. Kelsey asking me to play bass, it was just like, oh hell yeah, like I'm all about this. And like, I don't know a lot of like the music theory behind bass. For the first few years, I really just memorized bass lines, which was not very hard to do because again, the bass is like not hard to suck at. Yeah, it's very easy to play basically.
It's hard to suck at.
It's hard to suck
There
at.
you go. All
Yeah.
right.
Because it really is just, you're not playing chords or anything. You don't have to like know how to get your fingers to hit all the right notes at the same time. You're just playing one note at a time. And like I finger pluck. I've tried to play with a pick before, and that is genuinely hard for me. But I've heard the opposite from other people. It's of all the instruments in a full set band, like that's the easiest one to play. And I just lucked out where I already had the like string knowledge behind it, that I knew all of like the technique and felt very natural for me.
So how would you guys describe your sound for somebody that hasn't heard it? I mean, is it
Oh my
is
god,
a
this
band
is
collective?
this
Yeah.
is the $1 million question. All right, so just like to be really simple with it, I just like to call it rock and roll Kool-Aid, which people like to get really specific with their genres, and like they like to get super specific with rock and roll, and like I've just been an avid rock and roll person my entire life. Like that's all that I listen to other genres and such, but I've been obsessed with rock and roll my entire life. Like whatever subgenres you want to put it into. Like I love blues music. I love like anything under that umbrella. So I just call it rock and roll Kool-Aid because, if you want to get more specific with it, you're welcome to, but, that's what I call it.
Kelsey writes most of our songs, so they definitely come from a central rock and roll vibe, but there are very obvious influences from blues, from punk, from psychedelic. Since Kelsey writes most of them, it's easy for me to, like, kind of pick apart where they're coming from.
Hello.
It's okay. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. Sure, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. Come on in. No worries, no worries. Oh, so you were saying,
Oh yeah, so it's easy for me from a third party perspective to kind of see where she's coming from. Also, I grew up on like country for whatever goddamn reason. And so I've pretty much rock and roll was like the last genre that I was familiar with, so I knew everything going up to that. And so now that I'm seeing, I'm playing in a band that's like centered around rock and roll, so I know all of the influences like pretty specifically, personally at least. And that's something I think Kelsey challenges herself with, to write songs that are coming from different genres perspectives, which makes it really fun. But then ultimately it really is just rock and roll Kool-Aid. We're playing goddamn rock and roll, and it's fucking awesome.
are you guys playing shows in New York, or have you guys ventured out of the state to play? And what has your experience been like doing that?
We definitely have. We're trying to do it more and more. We've played New York probably 2 times, I guess once as Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs officially. But that's also where we met Brandon in New York City.
Is that awesome as shit?
New York is terrifying. Like coming over the bridge and seeing the skyline. Like you see one tiny part of it and you're like, that's the city. And then like it keeps going and you're like, oh, that's the city? And then it keeps going and going and going. You're like, oh my God, the city is so big. It's so intimidating. Like Philly, when I first moved to it, was like, oh God, that's a city. And then, I got to know it. And like, I know everything about Philly now. Like I know all the streets and whatever. And it's like much smaller than I remember it being when I first moved here. But New York, oh my God, it's just, for me personally, intimidating.
I can say when I moved to Philly though, and I work in Kensington with a lot of, I work in that area a lot. And I was just like, fuck. Like, dude, you're here now, dude. There's no going back. You know what I mean? So I know that idea of intimidation, from like the New York perspective. But go ahead.
I mean, I feel the same way. Like, coming from the Hicks, pretty much, like, oh my God, moving to Philly was, like, a big step for me. And then when we played in New York, it was just, like Jacinda said, it was, like, just even driving into New York City is, like, because, like, the Philly skyline is
Dope.
I mean, it's awesome, but it's also, like, it's one size, and then you look at, you're driving into New York City, and it's like the center city Philly times, like, 20. It's, like, all over. It's, like, so tall, and it was crazy. And, like, I mean, we played in Manhattan at the Bowery Electric map room, and it was, like, very cool. Like, there was a lot of people there and stuff, but I definitely felt more intimidated playing in New York City. Like, it didn't I'm not trying to, like, shit on anybody at all, but it was a different vibe, Like, I mean, of course we were playing in Manhattan too. Like, we've never played, like, New York's so big. Like, we've never played in, like, Brooklyn or anything yet, but definitely playing there. It wasn't like playing at Tralfamadore. It was like it was a very, very cool show, and, like, we totally enjoyed ourselves, and, like, I felt like everybody had a good time. It's just it's a different vibe. Like, I felt like it wasn't quite as loving, but, like, also that could just totally be me putting, like, New York on, like, a different level subconsciously and being, like, psyching myself out, being like, nobody liked me 'cause, like, I don't live in New York. But I don't know. We only played in, like, New York and Delaware so far, but we want to record. We want to record first and then try to go other places.
That's awesome. Do you guys have any music out now? And where can people get a hold of it? Where can people get a hold of you all? How can they get in touch with you?
Right now, we don't have any music recorded because I'm very poor. And yeah, we only became a band about a year ago. And so I've been saving up money for a couple months, and we are right now, like, in the process of getting ready to record some stuff. And yeah, once that happens, then we're gonna do everything that we can. But for now, I would suggest everybody to just pretty please like our Facebook page, like, follow us on Instagram and everything. Like, Kelsey, Cork, and the Swigs is where you can find it all. I have, like, a YouTube page, which for now is just Kelsey Cork Music, but that's where I'll post, like, everything. I'll probably change the name soon, but I just have some, like, acoustic covers on there and stuff. But everything, we're going to have stuff very soon, but for now it's just kind of been in, like, a holding phase of, like, the curse of venues not paying you. Yeah, it's like we're all very broke, and I don't want to record things that are shitty because these songs are, like, my children, so, like, I want to record them very well, and we're going to, and then we're gonna do a whole bunch of stuff. But for now, just like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram.
Come out to the live shows.
Yes.
Check out the live.
Come to our shows if you want to, like, really check us out. Come to our shows because that's where it's at for now. Like, do that. Like, that's where everybody gets to know us, is at our shows. Like, talk to us, like, watch us, listen to us.
Awesome. Hey, well, thank you both so much for giving me time and speaking with me. I really appreciate it, and wish you guys the best of success. If there's anything that we can do for you, let us know. All right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us so much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later.
Hello, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed that podcast. I wanted to let you guys know that we are on Patreon. That's Patreon.com.
basically what it is you can sign up and you can donate as little as $1 to continue to get this thing going. Allows me to kind of make some business cards, to continue handing those out, continue hitting up shows, and being able to bring you this content. You can donate as little as $1. I have things going on where you can get a sticker, a shirt, an advertisement if you wanted me to do one of those for you. But check us out on Patreon. That's patreon.com/No Love Philly. And sign up with us today. You can get exclusive content, stickers, shirts, even advertisements if you want them. But hit us up and see us there. Thank you.